Ona ma Willis.
8 ma second verse AJ.
Lero ma Willis.
Ma second.
8 bras.
8 brother.
How are you, my deputy chair?
Oh, la chief whip.
Warren chat.
Simna to Srangwanes. Wena?
Kisha. Resambika guy big.
Rabapumulisa. Hey, I was so dry too, man. Go socks, I was so dry too. So this week, Rabapumulisa.
Or a chief whip, why? But every topic is of why?
I buy young teen and I'm to Baku socks, man. Aye.
Abapumule ngani.
Loyalty, I think I can tell you. Oh,
Babalekile baye Cameroon, the country in South Africa.
By Cameroon.
Baslazi.
Barishiaga Matat.
Next to the name, please.
Brasworks.
I nearly said, Unjani Bracho, Utini Pratagile.
Yes, I'm Punjan Brasworks.
Ask corner, Brad. What hell would you come to Nengondola?
OTT. OTT.
Yeah. All right, Brian. All right, Brian.
Ona Tugu.
Yeah, all right.
Hayi kuzolunga mfowethu, kuzolunga.
Yeah, ngitsopolile man.
Ya no ngimnandi mfowethu, ngimnandi.
Khona abanye Dumsana.
Ngimnandi ngeacha.
Dumsana.
Yeah, so
Khona abanye ababiza nama second. Wena ke isimipa second.
Okay.
Hello.
Erin jealous mongwane. Erin jealous mongwane.
Maypa second.
Morning, everyone.
Morning, 1 year old. How are you? One day old. How are you? 1 day old.
I'm very well. How are you?
How was your birthday?
Yeah.
1 year old.
Oh, it was lovely. I just went for dinner with the family.
Okay, nice.
Panya.
We are looking for a fresh cake.
You must stop talking now. You must stop talking now. It's time to start. In case you incriminate yourself.
I'll drop a location. We can all meet in Malville tonight.
Bones. Is Bones in the house? Bones. Bones. Where's Willie? You must behave combat today.
Bones must behave, not me. There's someone who's interested on me, but my take out him in Bones, my guy. We has listen to listen. Hey, Bradu.
Morning. Thank you. Tagile. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you very much. Morning. We are going to start with our meeting. And pardon me because I'm connected from the phone. I want to see your face.
Speaker, I want to see your face. Oh yeah, it's good. I'm happy.
Speaker, we have muted yourself. Speaker, we have muted yourself or some self. Thank you very much, Tagile. Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
No, we see your eyes only.
Kanja, Deputy Speaker. I'm
Yeah,
using
yeah.
the phone. That's why I said you can't see me because I'm using the phone.
Oh, you're using your phone. Okay. Okay.
Yes. But can I take this opportunity? Can I request that you all stand up to observe a moment of silent prayer and meditation? Because this is the last sitting of the year, and in terms of the rules, we need to have a national anthem being sung, and therefore I'm going to request the team to help us with the national anthem. Thank you very much. We may all be seated. Let me take this opportunity to welcome our Honorable Premier, members of the Executive Council, leaders of political parties, Chief Whip, members of the Provincial Legislature, ladies and gentlemen, our officials. As you know that this is our last meeting of the year, I wish to indicate that we will be closing in the next few days. Our last day at work will be the 12th, but all members will be expected to do other or finish up the work that we set up for ourselves in the year. But thank you very much for honoring this invitation, where we're going to be receiving the political report of the Premier. Any member wants to do announcements? I know that we have a list of members who have submitted apologies. All members of the EFF are not going to be joining us this morning because of urgent party business, but there are few members, about 7 or 8 from the Democratic Alliance. I think what we will do, we're not going to read all the names, but we'll deal with the names administratively. But thank you very much. Is there a member who wants to do an announcement? If not, thank you very much. In terms of Rule 81, subsection 1, we only have one member who requested to do a member statement, Honorable Tilange.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. We were told this morning that there's not going to be any member statements, but I do have one ready.
Me too.
Honorable Tagile, I did not receive yours. I only received for Honorable Tilange, but can you quickly do it, Honorable Tilange?
Yes, ma'am, it's not a problem. You caught me off guard now because we were told that it's not going to go. I'm going to have to forego this one, Madam Speaker, because I filed it
No,
already.
thank you. Thank you, Honorable Tagile. Honorable Tagile. Okay, you are also foregoing.
Yes, I'm coming. Madam Speaker, Honorable Tumisani Tagile, a member of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, hereby serves notice in terms of Rule 81.1 of my intention to make a member statement to the House during the scheduled sitting of today. Madam Speaker, we have recently witnessed criminal acts and economic sabotage on our roads. The trucks have been banned and goods looted in the process. The road freight industry has been negatively affected by this recent incident. Some in this House lay the blame to the governing party. We are all disturbed and worried by these recent events. The core of the demand seems to be the fact that the employers in the road freight industry should employ locals as compared to the foreign nationals, whom some are illegal in the country and without any proper documentation. The reality is that the Freedom Front and the Honorable Hoffman should accept and recognize the fact that the industry remained untransformed and continue to reflect apartheid practices. The industry still pays apartheid wages and continue to exploit workers. It is the fact that some in the industry have employed foreign nationals as part of their strategy to reduce costs and remain competitive. We wish to indicate that the Roads and Transport Portfolio Committee has committed itself to undertake a scientific study to look and investigate at the state of the industry. We need to respond to some critical questions, for example, as to who owns and controls the industry. What are the labor conditions in the industry? Who are the real beneficiaries of the industry? We will avoid, Madam Speaker, on engaging with unscientific conclusions and assumptions, as Honorable Hoffman and the Freedom Front have demonstrated yesterday. To label the African National Congress as a racist amounts to an infantile disorder of the highest order. The argument raised by the Freedom Front are unscientific and unscrupulous, as to say least. We hope that the Freedom Front will learn to know that the ANC believes in science and facts and not just some halabaloo, gossips, and racist imagination, as witnessed from the Honorable Hoffman and his cabal in the Freedom Front. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Tagile. Can I ask the Secretary to read the first order?
Premier's political report for the year 2020.
Let me call all upon our Honorable Premier to deliver his political report. Over to you, Honorable Premier. Honorable Premier, are you ready? Honorable Premier.
Our graduate of the student movement, chairperson of the ANC in Gauteng, Comrade Premier of Gauteng, undisputed, uncontested.
Madam Speaker, we are struggling to hear the Premier.
Madam Speaker, we can't hear the Premier at all.
Augusto.
Madam Speaker, can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Speaker, we can hear.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, Premier.
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Honorable Lenting Ntombi Mehwe, Deputy Speaker, Honorable Nomvuyo Mhlakaza Manamela, the Chief Whip of the governing party, Honorable Malo, members of the Executive Council, leaders of political parties represented in our legislature, honorable members of our provincial legislature, compatriots, and fellow residents of Gauteng. It is a distinct honor and privilege to serve the people of our province over the period, firstly in the first 5 years of the 5th administration and up to so far over 6 years as the 6th Premier of our province. This is the first political report of the 6th provincial administration to this legislature. And most importantly, this report is not just to our legislature, but to the people of our province, at whose behest and pleasure we serve. We have to be accountable to what we are doing to fulfill their mandate and their dreams. And since May 2019, the question we seek to answer is, what has the 6th administration been doing to implement this mandate? Secondly, what has been the impact of COVID-19 on both our plans as well as lives and livelihoods of our people? Thirdly, what is it we have learned from this pandemic, and how can we move forward to pay attention with greater agency and to building the post-COVID-19 Gauteng of our dreams? Madam Speaker, globally, more than 60 million people have contracted coronavirus and over 1.4 have succumbed to COVID-19. This pandemic has disrupted lives, damaged economies, and destroyed livelihoods in a way never seen since the 1918-1919 Spanish flu and the 1929 Great Depression. It has also significantly changed the way we live our lives. No part of the globe has been spared or left unaffected. Every jurisdiction had to undertake serious measures to contain or prevent the spread and limit the impact of coronavirus on its society or economy. And these measures included beefing up the public healthcare system, strict non-pharmaceutical interventions, as well as the vaccine research and development. And as we speak, countries are in the vaccine race. Coronavirus has impacted profoundly on the way government, business, civil society works. Those who have access to modern technologies have been able to continue to work remotely from home with a bit of convenience, but even with that, for prolonged working hours, including members of this legislature, because there's no longer distinction between office and home. But there are also people who, out of fear of contracting the virus, who due to the lockdown, who due to job losses, the closure of businesses had been impacted quite severely. And many of them, we are told by researchers, are suffering from mental ill health. In other words, people's mental health and general well-being has declined as a result of coronavirus and COVID-19. During the second quarter of 2020, our own economy in South Africa was severely ravaged as a result of 2.2 million people losing their jobs. And in our province in particular, more than 661,000 people lost their jobs as a result of this pandemic. Gauteng's overall labor participation rate has also decreased from 71.3%. Labor participation rate is a measure of how many people are active in the economy, has declined from 71.3% to 57.6%, while in most of our countries is below 60%. It is important that we draw basic lessons, and today in this political report, I want to share with you some of the lasting impact and lessons that we as humanity should learn from COVID-19. The one basic lesson is that the COVID-19 pandemic teaches us that human solidarity and global multilateral cooperation is crucial for the collective survival and success of the human species and the planet, especially when dealing with existential threats and what I would call civilizational crises, such as pandemics, global economic or financial meltdowns or depressions, climate change, the rise in poverty, unacceptable levels of inequality and hunger in society. Again, those who have access to digital technology would bear us out that technology has been able to be used significantly to enhance service delivery, including those who have access to technology who were able to tap onto online education, healthcare services, and other government services. But we know there's a digital divide. A large population of people of our country and the developing world do not have access to digital technologies. Also, those who have access to technologies have been able to participate in the growth of e-commerce. In other words, fewer and fewer people who have access to technology had to walk into shops. They could simply do online shopping. But again, more than half of humanity does not have access to digital technology. So whereas it is a lesson that digital technologies can enable us to work in different places in different ways, but significant populations in our world today do not enjoy this, including some of the youth in the parts of our province. Governments were forced by the conditions of COVID-19. That's an important lesson. The COVID-19 emergency also forced governments to be better coordinated, particularly intergovernmental relations had improved quite significantly, we know, in South Africa. The way national government, provinces, and municipalities have worked in response to managing the pandemic as a disaster has improved the way we as government work amongst ourselves. In major areas, governments were also able to intervene to show that government can do things fast, to intervene in providing basic services such as water and interventions on human settlements to provide temporary shelter to our people, as well as far-reaching interventions on food relief. Again, to also show that governments can intervene. In fact, in South Africa, our government also intervened to provide relief for many workers during the lockdown who could not go to work through the UIF. But we also know that the COVID-19 pandemic exposed and accentuated some other epidemics and pandemics in our society. Apart from COVID-19, we've got other epidemics. Inequality and hunger was accentuated and exposed as an extreme pandemic. Crime and corruption, the depth particularly of certain types of crime and corruption, unemployment and poverty, even in the major leading economies. Millions of people were left unemployed. Gender-based violence and femicide, as people were confined in their home spaces, women were bearing the brunt of this criminal activity called gender-based violence and femicide. And some were killed in their own homes in the course of the coronavirus-related lockdown. Mental illnesses increased amongst many people as a result of the anxieties I have referred to earlier. And many who contracted coronavirus now have comorbidities or other morbidities they didn't have. And this is something that the health scientists are still studying. So the impact of coronavirus on the human body has been very, very severe. The impact on economies, we have in many parts of the world economic and financial meltdown. So the critical questions coming out of this is, how do we move from a post-COVID world that is fair, a world that is more inclusive, and a world that is more equal, where no one is left out? In fact, this is the fundamental question answered by our own program and our vision, Growing Gauteng Together, underpinned by the program of transformation, modernization, and reindustrialization of our province. And we delivered at the beginning of this year, in February, the State of the Province address, where we outlined what our plan of action is. I would like to say that the mandate and our plan of action hasn't changed, but COVID-19 has profoundly impacted on the context within which we now have to implement this plan of action. COVID-19 has actually also exposed the urgent need for the transformation, modernization, and reindustrialization of the different parts of our province. And it has also brought to the fore that the victims oftentimes of hunger, of inequalities, are Black people, not just in South Africa, people of color, even in major economies where they had borne the brunt of these other pandemics that go with COVID-19. So, honorable members, we know when we outlined our vision that it was based on the scenario planning conducted by the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection with a group of experts, researchers, civil society leaders, including universities and NGOs, who mapped 3 scenarios for South Africa. You remember those scenarios, the Gwara scenario, which is the West, where inequality increases. There's rising poverty, rampant corruption, an unrelenting climate crisis. Things are not getting any better. That's scenario number one. Scenario number two is Ibujo, where some people benefit and their life gets better and others don't and their life gets worse. And this leads to rising tensions and conflict in society. And lastly, Nile Walk, which we said, this is a society that is increasingly getting better. Government is getting better. People's livelihoods are improving, and everybody is feeling that it is worth living, and they are contributing to social cohesion and greater levels of development and equality across every part of our society, impacting positively on every member of our society, and no one is being left out. But honorable members would know that even in those scenarios, no one was able to predict or anticipate that there might be a big pandemic just around the corner in 2020. So the disruptive impact of this, the pandemic itself, has brought to the fore something that could create a scenario one, a Gwara scenario. And I've said earlier on, the kind of problems that have been accentuated and exposed by COVID-19 border on the situation getting worse, the livelihoods of millions of people being destroyed, people getting more desperate, the state getting unable to control crime and corruption, and people getting edgy, the climate crisis getting worse, and people taking things in their own hands. Are we there? There are elements of it, but should we lose hope? No. Because we cannot lose hope. We must tackle the crisis and the impact of COVID-19 with even greater levels of determination. Firstly, to want to create a province which is a well-governed province. And secondly, to want to create a sustainable and inclusive future for everybody. To create a society based on human solidarity, not just for us in South Africa or in Gauteng, but the world over. To create a province which cares about the most vulnerable in society, which empowers women, with young people, people with disability, which protects everybody, including the LGBTIQ community. We must, even with greater determination, be willing to sacrifice more to radically transform our province, to urgently and constantly get industrialization going on in our economy, to get this economy to grow in an innovative, inclusive, and sustainable way, to get this economy on a path of creating decent jobs, and on a path of breaking with monopolies to create all small and medium-sized enterprises that are the key drivers of any better economy anywhere else in the world. But to also ensure our population is increasingly more educated and better skilled, and it is a healthy population. So to do that, we will need to improve and learn from how we can function better. To also ensure that our kind of urbanization, our urbanism is more spatially transformed, and our people live in the urban spaces where they are connected to modern infrastructure. No part of our province is left out of the Internet of Things. And as we know, honorable members, every time we've been online here, I know which part of our province our honorable members have a difficulty with connectivity. Not just members of society, including members of our legislature, because not all, we inherited a spatial form or spatial morphology of apartheid where certain parts are underdeveloped. We've got to change this and modernize access to public transport, improve the provision of public infrastructure and economic opportunities to every part of our province. and ensure that there is a development path that protects the environment in every part of our province. We need to be even more determined to eliminate discrimination of all forms, including racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, and others. We can only do this on the basis of our priorities, which we tabled in February, which deal with, firstly, building a capable and ethical state. The capacity of the state and the orientation of the state is so central to our ability to respond to this tremendously negative impact of COVID-19 on society and our economy, on the well-being of the majority of our people. We need to do so by ensuring that we focus on economy, jobs, and infrastructure, on education and skills and healthcare, on safety, social cohesion, and food security, on ensuring that we have integrated human settlements and land release, on building a better Africa and a better world, on building a sustainable future. Those are the priority areas of action that we set for ourselves. And as we attend to all these areas, we want one country, one plan, one province, one plan, one district, one plan, in line with the district development model. And our vision is to have the Gauteng City region that unlocks the full potential of those high growth sectors of the economy. That must be the key drivers of growth. That must be the key drivers of economic integration of our people who have been left out of this economy for centuries of colonialism and apartheid. We need to identify those high growth sectors, which are also going to be the key drivers of not just employment and empowerment, but also exports. Exports are important, especially export into our continent in the context of the Africa Free Trade Continental Agreements. So again, I want to emphasize, we can't do this if we have an ailing state. So let's report to you, Madam Speaker, and members of our legislature on a few areas related to building a capable, ethical, and developing state. That even in the face of COVID-19, Madam Speaker, we are committed to prudent financial management, clean governance, and accountability, as well as an active engagement with our citizenry and communities, although under conditions with regard to COVID that are quite constrained given the regulations. So the fact that we couldn't go to communities on certain areas where we had hoped we will go and engage communities, it's not that we have changed our minds. That's the hallmarks of our administration. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say that one of the important issues that's shining the light on prudent financial management and clean governance and accountability is that between 2013-14 and 2017-18 financial years, the Auditor General's report, and this would principally have been the reports done by the late Auditor General Himima Kwetu, may his soul rest in peace. Those reports demonstrate a clear emerging trajectory, at least that emerged over a period of time, especially over the period of 6 years. And that trajectory is that audit outcomes were improving drastically in Gauteng, and they improved from 56% to 65% of clean audits. All the departments and agencies were working extremely hard to improve audit outcomes. Because accounting for how we use the money, these are public funds, these are not our funds, accounting for how we use this money is extremely important. It's a fundamental pillar of our philosophy of governance as the ANC-led administration. It's not accidental. It's fundamental to the conduct of the transformation agenda. And in that context, therefore, the Office of the Premier and the Provincial Treasury have been the principal champions, given the fact that they are centers of government together with COCTA, COCTA which oversees municipalities. They are the centers of government on ensuring that there is clean governance at different levels. They are not just the principal champions, but they also led by the power of example and by the force of example in achieving what I regard as a feat. Yesterday, in introducing the annual report, I said Treasury and the Office of the Premier achieved 7 consecutive years of clean audits. I was wrong. It's actually 8 consecutive years of clean audits. From the financial year 2012, 2013 to the 2019-2020, this current financial year under which I'm giving this report. So for the past 8 years, without failure, Treasury and the Office of the Premier have been a shining example of leadership through action on achieving clean audits, but not just achieving clean audits for their own sake, accounting for the resources that the public entrust with us. I've already said that there were significant improvements across the whole of government in Gauteng province. In fact, in the 2017-18 financial year, all departments and agencies got unqualified audit outcomes. Now, it is known that unqualified audit outcomes is a combination of what is called without matters, which is clean audits, and with matters. But 2017-18 was the best of our years. I looked back into all the audit reports from the first time they were published, 2008, 2007, 2008. I looked at all those reports. The best year in all those years was the 2017-18 financial year. And I'm saying that in all those years from 2008, the Office of the Premier and Provincial Treasury would have achieved 8 consecutive years of clean audits. Honorable members, the open tender system, at least of those eight consecutive years, 6 of them may I honorably say, 6 of those 8 years was under the leadership of the 5th administration and the 6th administration. May I say so? 6 out of 8. And that just to demonstrate that we have been very determined, we have been very committed, we have been to clean up government malfeasance in the different areas in our province. At the center of those efforts were the open tender system and an initiative we put together with civil society, which is called the Anti-Corruption Civil Society Panel, which ensured transparency on finances and accountability and clean governance. And that enabled us to be able to achieve a great deal of progress and what is a feat. I need to say to honorable members, reporting to you now, this is a matter that our Executive Council has been dealing with. There are signs of regression on clean governance practices in some of our departments and our agencies. And corruption is rearing its ugly and stubborn head again, and it's resurging. It was never gone because it was work in progress. We're tackling it through those instruments. But we are deeply concerned that in parts of our provincial government, some of our departments, some of our agencies, there's regression on this commitment to clean audit. And I want to say, as the premier of this province and our collective of the Executive Council, we're not going to take it lying down. We're going to ensure we tackle this agency by agency, department by department, to go back to a period where we were significantly improving on audit outcomes. There are several instruments we are using. One of them is the relocation of the Provincial Forensic Audit Unit to the Office of the Premier. and boosting its capacity, and the provincial forensic audit unit has been working extremely well, even when it was in our treasury. As I speak, they have finalized 73 forensic investigations, and 66 of those cases have been opened and referred to law enforcement agencies for criminal prosecution and recovery of public funds. The Provincial Forensic Audit Unit is working very closely with the Special Investigation Unit and other law enforcement agencies on various cases that these agencies are investigating, because there are matters that are being investigated by the Provincial Forensic Audit Unit or independent forensic auditors, and other matters investigated by the SIU. But all those cases are consolidated at the center, and the Office of the Premier is spearheading the need to ensure that there are full consequences where corruption is rearing its ugly head or has shown its ugly face again. COVID-related corruption is just an indication of this resurgence and stubbornness of corrupt practices, and the fact that indeed corruption is a pandemic. And we are not going to allow this to take us to a situation where we lose ground. All the progress we have been making is eroded and undermined. Last year, I made a commitment in the State of the Province address in July that all senior managers, including supply chain officials, will be vetted by the state security organs which are responsible for vetting. And I'm glad to report that 65% have already been vetted. And this work of vetting officials responsible for important, especially allocative procurement decisions is extremely important. The fight against corruption will never be easy, and we will not surrender. Honorable members, I also made an announcement that we will get the State Security Agency to conduct lifestyle audits on members of the Executive Council. And as I speak, I would like to report that the State Security Agency has been busy with the audits, and we await the outcome of the audits. They are not just dealing with the Gauteng province. We know several provinces, the KwaZulu-Natal province, the Eastern Cape province have also requested the same from the State Security Agency. These lifestyle audits will be extended to all senior officials, especially members of supply chain management committees. We know there's lots of things happening in those supply chain management committees, where some people even refuse promotion because promotion may force them to declare and they better stay at the same position. Some even plead to just remain deputy directors so that they stay out of the limelight. I also want to report that through the Back to Basics and the district development model, our provincial government has in the last year improved oversight and support to municipalities to ensure that they fulfill their obligations. And this is driven by the Department of COGTA. And they meet the expectations of residents as well as our own expectations for clean governance and integrated approach to development. We have instituted through the Department of COGTA several investigations and Section 139 interventions in a number of municipalities that face these challenges in Gauteng. There may not always be agreement about those, and they may some of the cases may even end up in court or even end up at the NCOP, but we must continue to do what we think is right. And where we acted and we get told by the appropriate agency or institution of state, we will go back. But we are not going to be sitting ducks. We're not going to sit back and watch when municipalities fail to perform their functions. Our approach is always first and foremost cooperative government. So we want to work together with our colleagues in local government. We don't want to just be intervening. We want to work together with them to serve the people of our province, regardless of whichever party a particular municipality is governed by. Cooperation, again, as I said, multilateral cooperation is important, and human solidarity. But even cooperation between the spheres of government is absolutely important to get things done, to improve the quality of life, to turn around the economy, to enhance the education outcomes, to ensure that our healthcare system serves everybody, to respond to social ills such as gender-based violence, to respond to challenges of economic exclusion, hunger, and urban poverty. We need to be cooperating. And on those central issues, there should be no party politics that stand on our way. We should be working together as government in the interest of the people of our province, whichever area they come from, however big or small their municipality is. So what have we been doing on the economy, even in the face of COVID? I want to say our overriding strategic perspective and approach is to transform, modernize, and reindustrialize the Gauteng City region through the development of a network of special economic zones, industrial parks, and agro-processing hubs that are linked, firstly linked to constitute what we say in the long term will be a mega special economic zone. They must first be linked, but they must also be infrastructure. They must constitute the infrastructure that integrate small and medium-sized businesses, including the informal sector and the township businesses, into the mainstream of the high growth sectors, into their supply chains, into their value chains, to business together. So when we have a special economic zone in a particular area, it must be an integrative and transformative infrastructure. It's not just about attracting foreign investment. Yes, it's very important, but to use those special economic zones to help transform the space, to help enhance economic participation, create employment opportunities for young people in those areas. So at least in the last year, between November last year and now, the Tshwane Automotive Special Economic Zone is the second special economic zone in Gauteng. Follows the OR Tambo Industrial Development Zone stroke special economic zone. They mean the same thing. They seek to ensure that they attract foreign investment, bring businesses in there, offer incentives, but also drive employment, empowerment, and exports. So this one is special economic zone as the second special economic zone. It's already leveraging significant participation, especially of small businesses from our township in Mamelodi. 4 billion rand in the first phase of this project is being invested, has been invested to build the infrastructure for the various suppliers, to build a supplier park. And that work is underway, and that work is involving a lot of SMMEs in our townships in Mamelodi, and also black business in our province. We are working with the DBSA and the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition to pay attention to other areas. The Vaal Special Economic Zone, the Vaal SEZ, the West Rand Special Agro-Processing Zone, and Lanseria Smart City Development are the point on focus. The DBSA is going to enable us, especially for the municipalities that don't have bulk infrastructure funding, such as our districts. The DBSA is helping us to advance resources to help catalyze investment in bulk infrastructure, which will be a key driver of bringing the private sector players in those areas. We know that by 2025, the Tshwane Special Economic Zone will be in operation, We know that by 2025, at least it's our commitment that in Ekurhuleni we will expand the OR Tambo Special Economic Zone from where it is, where the IDZ is now, right through to the area that would include the logistics hub, that's also including the train and logistics manufacturing area in the eastern part of Ekurhuleni. We know that in Tshwane, there's also work being done to focus on another special economic zone, the high-tech special economic zone. And in the West Rand, we are focusing on agro-processing, urban agriculture, and bringing women and Black people into that section of the economy, including on the agricultural value chain and the value chains of the agribusiness sector out in province. As we do all that, there are other important economic initiatives. We've also been monitoring just since May elections, how are we doing on economic opportunities for targeted groups. I want to report to this legislature that at least so far, we have exceeded the targets we have set for empowerment of women, empowerment of youth, and people with disability. We have exceeded the target for empowering women by 10.1%. We have exceeded the target for empowering youth by 3.9%. We have exceeded the target for empowering people with disability by 0.7%. We are also bringing into this military veterans who we know also have a grievance. We see their marches. These are our fellow South Africans, many of whom were very young when they took up arms in defense of democracy and in search of freedom. Regardless of whichever army they belonged to, including those who were part of the old apartheid South African Defense Force. Military veterans are very, very important for any society to look after. If you don't look after them, you are looking for trouble. So we are including them as a targeted group. And I want to report that particularly in Mamelodi, they are actively involved in the Special Economic Zone initiatives amongst the SMMEs that are providing service that special economic. Honorable members, one of the key things that Gauteng must never leave out, because we have always been saying we are a highly industrialized economy, but we mustn't leave out agriculture, especially urban agriculture and agro-processing. Because agriculture is the only sector during COVID that did not lose jobs. In fact, more than 2,000 jobs in Gauteng alone were created in the agriculture and agro-processing sector. In the midst of COVID-19, when we shed 661,000 jobs, this sector just shows there is a potential for employment creation. But we in Gauteng have to elevate this sector, that is urban agriculture and agro-processing. We have to elevate it to a level of ensuring that there's significant participation, Black farmers, small-scale farmers, including our people in the townships, must to elevate some of the community food gardens to the level of being able to produce food, not just for the beneficiaries in there, but to produce food to enhance smart agriculture, to enhance sustainable agriculture, to ensure they can also produce food that can be sold, including to ourselves as the public sector. So what are we doing? We have been supporting the commercialization of emerging Black farmers and the smallholder farmers in our province through the following measures. Access to land, we have seen there's national government land, there's provincial government land, and there's municipal land that is also arable land and good for various agricultural activities. So the releasing land and access to land is fundamental. We know Gauteng doesn't have large tracts of land, but the initiatives such as what we have seen in Ekurhuleni, where the city is releasing land to those, particularly Black people, women, and people in the township who want to be involved in urban, some significant scale urban farming. Gauteng does have parts of the province where farming is thriving. So access to land, access provision, providing them with production inputs, enabling infrastructure, but also extension services, critical for those who are entering agriculture for the first time to have support extension services. Agro-processing facilities. Agro-processing is a critical subsector of manufacturing. So Gauteng may not be participating in a big scale in agriculture, but agro-processing is our thing, which includes food packaging and various areas of agro-processing value chain, processing of commodities and packaging of commodities, including for local markets, and most importantly for the SADC market. We're doing extremely well in that, but we also need to do more. One area we're not doing very well on is access to enabling small-scale farmers and black farmers to access market. Government is a big market. We have hospitals that are providing food every day. We have the school nutrition program. That we have the food. We have intervention about food relief. We are spending billions of rands. We've got national departments and municipalities that also have a purchasing capacity for agricultural, but we all prefer to just go to dominant, monopolistic oligopolies. And these are principally few white controlled companies, right? Agricultural corporates. We leave out the involvement of small and medium cultural enterprises, most of which are run by women. In our townships and in the inner city, some are beginning to do very interesting developments in our own inner city area. So, honorable members, I am not satisfied with how, as government, we are spending our rent, buying food, to support all the areas I have referred, whether it's school nutrition, whether it's hospital, whether it's food relief. We should scale up the support, whether it's the Defense Force, and the Defense Force has made a good commitment, whether it's the correctional service, departments that are involved, made good commitments to help support community-based food gardens and small-scale producers that we will identify, and we are already working with them. Our departments of GDAD and social development. Honorable members, in July last year, I made a commitment in the first State of the Province address that we are going to champion a new dispensation for township businesses. A dispensation never seen before. Apartheid marginalized them, so that they make it difficult for people to establish businesses as a deliberate policy. So the Township Economic Development Act, which is now gazetted as a draft bill, now gazetted, seeks to empower and support local township-based business. I want to emphasize local township-based business, because immigration policy of every country always start with support. You support your citizens. You can open up, but you first and foremost, it cannot be a crime. And one can't be accused of xenophobia. There's no government that says we want to first and foremost prioritize and support our citizens and the businesses that are, especially businesses, small businesses, medium-sized businesses owned by women, owned by the spaza shops, and the many businesses in our township that are the means of livelihood, billions of our people, that are sending children to university, that are the ones that are getting the families and households up on the social ladder. So why should we apologize for saying we want to prioritize and support? That's the first thing we want to achieve. The second thing, we want to create an environment, enabling environment for any investor who wants to invest in the township. Now, these are not local people in our township, but we want to bring more companies to invest and open businesses in our townships to create jobs closer to where are. An example I always give is in the global business services, the BPO sector, where we've been having discussions with them, and this initiative is going very well, that we need call centers to be opened in the townships where you can employ in one call center 1,000 people. And we're getting the banks, we're getting the technology companies, we're getting the BPO companies. They have bought into this idea, and they're saying to us, give us land, we will put up a facility in the township there. It's an investment. Many of them are foreign investors, they are also local investors. But when they do that, we must see the real benefit, not the exploitation of the township, the real benefits for township. We also include in the other businesses, the supermarkets that are established in our township. We want to find a model that the supermarket also support township spaza shops, and they grow together instead of displacing. Township economic development bill is really causing a lot of excitement in the consultations that are currently underway. Generated lots of enthusiasm amongst SMMEs and the informal sector. These are people who are bearing the brunt of displacement, discrimination, and in many areas, unfair competition by unlicensed, unregistered businesses that just come and establish themselves in the township. So we want to create, through this bill, we want to create a framework, an enabling framework, an enabling environment for the growth and thriving of township-based business. And for partnership between those township-based businesses or any other company that operates in the township. So this bill will be introduced to the legislature before the end of March 2021, and the delay is principally a result of COVID-19. Cost us delays. Couldn't do consultations in the normal way. Not all business people in the township have access to internet. We can't do those virtual consultations. We couldn't do all that. We're now doing consultations as we had moved from one step to the other to enable us to be able to say, this bill has got, there's been corrections here or inputs here. It mustn't achieve unintended consequences. So I look forward to, at least by June 2021, that we will have a provincial law adopted by our legislature. Of course, we will make sure it's certified, it's tested, so that we don't get told that it's unconstitutional by those who want to oppose the fundamental transformation of the spatial economy of this province. We will make sure, and I'm hoping that we will get this legislature to support this initiative. How do we transform, support, and enable township businesses which are owned by Abu Mamkize, the Mematala, these township businesses, how do we enable these businesses to continue to provide sustainable livelihood for people? The people in the townships are not going to move anywhere. Yes, they are a legacy of apartheid, but they also forged a successful, formidable struggle against apartheid. As much as they are a legacy of apartheid, but they were the terrain of the anti-apartheid. People in the township or the brand apartheid repression. So development must be taken to the township, must be felt, mustn't only go to new areas where we are building, putting new development. Must go to the old towns. Must get these economies in those local community functions. That's what the objective of Gauteng Township Economic. Through infrastructure interventions and infrastructure investment, we have an infrastructure budget of 50 billion rand, where we are also using these infrastructure programs to empower, to create job opportunities and empower Black businesses, women-owned businesses, businesses owned by young people, people with disability. And as I said earlier on, military veterans are having their voice being heard right now about the need for their participation. And here we're talking about empowerment that is ethical, that is transparent, there's nothing to hide, because empowerment and addressing imbalances is part of the constitution of our republic, impels us to do that, to empower those previously disadvantaged, to honor those who have dedicated their lives and sacrificed for freedom and democracy. So we are working also with national government to leverage opportunities of the presidential infrastructure initiatives and link and align them with our infrastructure pipeline in our province. And I want to report that just in the period of COVID, we have been able to do a lot of work to improve health infrastructure, to upgrade health facilities. We are not yet where we want to be, but some of the plans we could have done in 5 years were done in the past 6 months. They are still underway, to a point where we will have, by the time these infrastructure upgrades are done, we will have additional 3,000 beds that would have been added, and a significant improvements of the face and conditions of our health facilities, especially the old hospitals. The upgrade program has been very good for the different corridors of our province. With regard to transport infrastructure, we have had a problem over time about delays in rolling out, especially catalytic road infrastructure that is able to create economic opportunities, improve investment, and unlock major investments, but also connect the people of our province. And I'm glad to report that the Transport Infrastructure House, which has been set up by the Department of Public Transport and Infrastructure, is now promising, very promising, that we are going to have fast-tracked delivery and building of roads in our province. That part is very important, as much as we need other parts of public transport infrastructure. COVID-19, as I said, has also caused delays in the building of some of our schools. Some of our school building program was delayed, but this is now back on the pipeline. And I'm very confident that the Department of Infrastructure Development will be able to deliver to us the number of schools, as we had done during the 5th administration, where we were unveiling new schools continuously every month. I'm confident that this will be done. There is a big problem with infrastructure projects all over the province. That is the hijacking or the stopping of infrastructure projects by criminal elements masquerading as business forums, because we work with business forums. And one of the best models of working with local businesses is the SEZ in Tshwane, where the local businesses themselves protect a project because it is to the benefit of the community, but is to uplift development and create economic opportunities in the area. So I am glad to say that the South African Police Service has set up a special task team that has been very helpful to help the Department of Infrastructure Development. Whenever there are stoppages of projects, especially caused by those who want to hijack them because they're trying to extract money out of that, the law enforcement agencies have intervened, but we have also stepped up engagement with those who often don't understand the impact of stopping infrastructure projects. So our infrastructure program will definitely upscale as we continue to improve and are finding better ways in this regard. Overall, public transport infrastructure, we now have the Gauteng Transport Authority that has been established by the province and municipalities. The transport authority is in place. It is setting up its board now. We're believing now that the coordination and rollout of public transport networks across the province, including the single ticketing system and intermodal facilities across the province, is now going to be, will improve because it's done by one agency, the Gauteng Transport Authority. The integrated, reliable, affordable, safe, efficient, and smart mobility system in Gauteng will definitely take shape as part of our 2030 vision. With regard to public human settlement infrastructure, the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted and delayed significantly some of the rollout plans we had, especially on the rapid land release. There was a period during the lockdown where it was impossible for businesses, especially construction businesses, to function. So that also delayed some of our human settlement projects. But we are ready now, having moved to level 1, and in the third quarter in particular, there's been improved activities by various departments, including in the area of human settlements. And we have serviced sites that are ready in Sidibeng, in the West Rand, and Ekurhuleni, ready to be handed to those who want to build houses for themselves. And I won't say where, because we're supposed to hand over serviced sites in Sidibeng, and then we were stopped. People caught wind that we are coming to hand over, and that delayed us. We are dealing with all those. There are 976 legacy projects related, particularly the housing units related to legacy projects, which have been completed. 2,037 mega project units, which have also been completed, and 1,332 service site stands that are developed, ready to be handed over. I must say also, I'm happy that the renovation of hostels and their conversion into family units is back on track. We are doing lots of work in Johannesburg, and Ekurhuleni. Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni are the key focus areas because that's where we have more hostels, which must be converted and upgraded. We have 229 units that have been constructed and are just waiting for connection of sewer and water at Retabile LTA Hostel. And as I said, several upgrades are taking place. The urban renewal projects are, I made a commitment that we are going to resuscitate them, and where in some of the urban renewal projects we lost momentum, we didn't achieve our ultimate goal. We said we are going back, and I must commend national government for working with us very closely on Alexandra. I think the protracted teething problem of Alexandra, the big problem that has been there, one of the oldest townships in our country. We're making significant progress there, and there are processes by our Department of Human Settlements to ensure that Everton, Winterfeld, Bakersdal, and Kliptown's plans are also back on track. Some of those areas we are also looking for additional support, funding support for them. We have handed over 1,111 title deeds registered. That this is the post-1994 title deeds, and an additional title deeds that have been. Yes, we have had a problem of COVID-19 for at least 6 months of the 18 months since May 2019 have been the difficult months of COVID, but we have been learning and getting around how to do government work and implement our plans even in the face of COVID-19, and get ways to comply with the regulations and still implement our plans. It hasn't been easy, but we are drawing lessons in some areas on how to live with COVID and how government must live with COVID and function whilst complying with the COVID regulations. We can't wait for the day COVID will be completely gone. That day may be very, very far. We must learn to live with COVID. With regard to education, the greatest achievement in education was to ensure that we protect this academic year. There was a lot of pressure on government by organized interest groups, including teacher unions and other civil society groups that were putting pressure on us to completely shut down and just say we have lost this academic year. It is difficult to arrive at that conclusion. Firstly, as parents, it's what do you do with these children when they are at home? It's a very difficult thing. I am glad that we worked around this and reopened schools as safely as we could, put in place systems. Now our children in grade 12 are writing their exams. In fact, we are very happy that we're able to get to that point. Of course, we have a disappointment with the leak of exam papers. This is a matter being dealt with by law enforcement agencies. But we have continued to toil on in providing quality education to the best of our ability, even in areas where there were difficulties with ICT systems, to find ways of supporting learners in those communities, in communities where the digital divide is basically excluding them. And we have continued with our modernization of the education system through investing in ICT. So since the beginning of the year, 10,000 classrooms were ICT enabled, and then 10,000 LED boards were installed in these classrooms, and over 20,000 laptops were distributed to teachers. And in our province, over 200,000 tablets have been distributed. And here, I don't mean the pills. I mean the tablets. Yeah, I don't mean the pills. Honorable members, we are not distributing 200,000 pills to our children, but we're talking about the tablets. We have also been in the process retraining teachers, reskilling them in the midst of COVID-19, with all its impact on our teaching corps, on our professionals, and all the challenges it posed to especially teachers who had comorbidities, who were older. But we had continued to soldier on education in the midst of this. With regard to access to healthcare, we are looking at a continuous journey of improvement, including testing people for HIV. 1.7 million people tested for HIV in line with the 1990 strategy. Improvements in the treatment of TB, and in the face, both the issue of HIV, people living with HIV and people with other comorbidities was a big issue in the course of COVID. We know that COVID often attacks those who already have comorbidities, especially diabetes and hypertension. That's the largest number of people who have succumbed to COVID. From April to June 2020, we have also enrolled patients on the Central Chronic Medicine Dispensing and Distribution Program. 887,000 people enrolled on that. That's very useful for elderly people in particular. They mustn't be going to queue to collect medication at our healthcare facilities. There must be delivery of medication to where they are. The case fatality rate of the under fives, especially the childhood sicknesses, have declined to below 3% in Gauteng province. The performance of our healthcare system, especially our healthcare professionals, has been exceptional. It is these healthcare professionals who highly professional, disciplined, hardworking, and many of them very ethical people, which has seen us through the most difficult time in the last century in human history, the most difficult time since the 1819 Spanish flu. It is through these health care workers that we have been able as a province to succeed. CEOs in most of our hospitals where there were vacancies and community health care centers have been appointed. We still just have a few that are left. And this has been helpful to improve the leadership and the effective response of these institutions, especially during COVID, but generally to provide good public health services to the people of Gauteng. So despite all this progress, we know, as a matter of fact, that the PPE procurement corruption has undermined the reality and it has undermined this progress and underlined the reality that we still have a lot of areas of structural dysfunctionality and systemic dysfunctionality of the Department of Health, especially at the top, and structural problems and structural deficiencies where it matters most, and inadequacies where it matters most in the institutions that are the front line of the delivery of healthcare services. And these structural deficiencies and systemic problems show up from time to time. They show up from time to time, and they often have a damaging and devastating impact on public health services in Gauteng province. It is for this reason, honorable members, that on Tuesday I announced in the legislature that our Executive Council, at that time it was not yet appointed, but it is now appointed, has appointed an intervention team of public health experts, management experts, and turnaround experts who are working to help rebuild the department from no longer focusing just at the headquarters, but from the grassroots up, because that's where our interaction with clinicians tells us a story. And the CEOs and the health workers on the ground tell us, that interaction tells us a story. That if we were to invest and redirect most of the resources there, including redirecting the resources, including human resources that are concentrated sometimes much at the top, were to redirect them to the lower levels, we would have a better functioning primary healthcare system, including the functioning of the district hospitals and the tertiary hospitals to support quality healthcare, because we have the best centers of excellence as Gauteng province. But the structural and systemic problems of our department, which often have to do also with clean governance problems, just irregularities on appointments, on procurements and appointments of officials, they are systemic and they often have a bearing on financial sustainability of the Department of Health. These have been structural problems over time, and the PPE procurement scandal just shows up that part, the ugly face of the department, which is not just for now only, it has happened at different points. So this team that our Executive Council has appointed is going to work with the new MEC for Health, who will be announced next week, to help us build a dynamic organization to deliver the healthcare services in Gauteng. Crime has been a big problem in our province. The one important thing about COVID-19 is that the police, the law enforcement agencies, the South African Police Service, Metro Police, and other agencies have worked and have improved coordination so much, so well. They have stepped up to the face. They have come to the fore. They have improved coordination so well. Their visibility and presence was felt during COVID-19, and that drove certain types of crime down. And that's something that's a lesson we are carrying into the future. The police using Operation Ukai Mulao must not revert back to a situation where the police cannot be found. And it is for that reason that the provincial government is supporting the law enforcement agencies in Gauteng, especially the South African Police Service, to buy 55 new high-performance vehicles that would These vehicles are already on their way to delivery. They are being awaited by the police. These vehicles are going to enhance police response and police visibility. There was a period in Gauteng where the police were everywhere, every corner you would see police vehicles, and that drove down crime. We want to go back to that situation again in our province. So we know that other types of crimes went down, but there's one type of crime, gender-based violence and femicide, drastically increased during COVID as people were confined in their homes. Women were bearing the brunt of this. What are we doing on gender-based violence and femicide response? We have launched a provincial integrated emergency, a provincial coordinating structure. We have also adopted an emergency gender-based violence and femicide response plan. It's an integrated emergency plan for our province. It was launched by the MEC for Community Safety with the support of the Speaker of the Legislature. Thank you, Madam Speaker. On issues pertaining to helping our people, the legislature and provincial government have to be out there together. So what have these structures and this program been doing already? We have since January 2000, January this year, we've been able to support victims and survivors of gender-based violence, close to 3,000 of them, 2,988, through active state intervention and support. These measures have been very, very important. We are using gender-based violence and femicide brigades. We have 600 that are conducting outreach programs, reaching out to communities, mobilizing, working with NGOs and communities in response to the plight of women and children. The law enforcement agencies are also shaping up. The police have set up several special task teams, including a task team focusing on human trafficking, which principally affects women and children. Human trafficking. It's a very important area of gender-based violence and the abuse and the killing of women and children. In this particular case, including trading, the kind of slavery where they are these rogue elements involved in this crime, human trafficking, are trading in women and children as a form of slave trade. Again, COVID-19 accentuated and brought to the fore the depth of poverty and hunger in a province that is the economic hub of South Africa. More than 1/3 of the people of our province go to bed without the certainty of food. In a week, sometimes they guaranteed food 2 days in 7 days, 2 of the 7 days. The number increases when it comes to how many would be able to have food, at least 5 days a week. The one key intervention that our province must be proud of is that between April and September, we have been able to provide 2.8 million people with food relief in Gauteng province alone. This 2.8 million is an intervention of government alone. The private sector and the NPOs have also supported close to 1 million people, separate from the 2.8 million people. So in a sense, you would say 3.8 million people have been provided with food relief by both government, the private sector, and the non-profit sector in collaboration in response to COVID. And this tells the big story that we don't have a systematic strategy to deal with hunger in South Africa. And I make it in South Africa because especially the urban elites take this for granted. When there are millions of people in the cities, in our cities, who are hungry, and yet one third of the food that is sold in our supermarkets that get thrown away as waste almost every day. 33% of the food sold in our supermarkets gets thrown away almost every day when there are so many people who are hungry. 3,000 more young women to add to the number we did 3,000 more young women have been brought onto the welfare to work program, and our EPWP program has also provided opportunities to 7,000 work opportunities to 7,000 people. Honorable members, we also came face to face with the scourge of homelessness in urban homelessness in our CBDs. There are many people who are homeless, who live precarious lives. Our provincial government, working with municipalities, has been able to consistently throughout COVID to support 2,344 people with shelter, and they get 3 meals on a daily basis, and psychological support, medical examination, treatment for substance abuse, and some have undergone training, and some of them graduated just last week. Amazing, they were living in our streets, in our cities. And now they're empowered, they're very confident that they're going to live productive lives. We have also continued to provide girl children in our province with dignity packs, the sanitary dignity program. 1.3 million of them have been provided with that. These are interventions on the poor, and this their poverty situation was accentuated by COVID-19. The sports, arts, and culture and recreation sector were almost like the most severely impacted sector of our economy. The creative industries and the sporting community, hardest hit because these are mass activities. They are often contact sport and mass activities. So the lockdown, we understand the lockdown very well, the rationale, we understand that, and it's good that it had phases and as the situation improved, but that impacted severely. There was a real lockdown of this sector. Many sports personalities and sports persons and people in the sector are individual businesses. There are businesses that are just an individual, sometimes two people, but they are individuals who have talent. They are businesses. So a lot of them went through tough time, very, very, very tough period during COVID. The provincial government created, firstly, a relief fund for the creative industries and the sports sector, as well as an SMME fund for small businesses that have gone through terrible time. A lot of them have shut down. But I want to say to this legislature, I am not pleased with the onerous regulatory requirements that we often as government, as the logic of government function, these onerous regulatory requirements just make it difficult to even help people who need help. So we have had a delay, terrible delay with the fund that we have set aside to, on the basis of our agencies and institutions bogged down on these onerous regulatory things that have taken forever to implement. I often get calls from people who say, but Premier, we heard about the MEC of Sport talking about the relief fund, but when is it happening? And the MEC of Sport always explains to me, and the MEC of Economic Development explained to me, Premier, these things are still going through process. But I'm saying that you can't explain when businesses are disappearing, jobs are disappearing, and livelihoods are destroyed. You can't keep explaining about no, they're still going through a process of government that is endless. Bureaucracy is one of the most frustrating things about government. And sometimes it's rules that take precedent over saving lives and saving jobs and saving small businesses. So as the Premier, one of the most frustrating things about my term of office has been to be explained to by the bureaucrats why things cannot be done quickly. And you can't take this explanation to someone whose livelihood is destroyed, whose child is getting expelled from school because they cannot, or someone losing a house. You can't explain to them long bureaucratic processes. So we've got to find a way of getting government to function better. I know some of these are prescribed in our financial regulations, but it can be pleasing to run a government where things don't happen as fast as it's necessary, because it can be pleasing. The good thing is that even though this sector was shut down, the provincial government through the department used technology very creatively to host some of events, some of activities, including promoting e-library services to get, especially during the shutdown. So creative ways using technology were found to keep work going. That's the story of this report. Is COVID-19 was hard, but government has been learning in our province to find creative ways. And in the process, yes, mistakes get made, and some advantage gets taken by this emergency situation by rogue elements in our system. We have also worked with the Premier Soccer League to ensure the completion of the remainder of the 2019-2020 season, and I don't remember who won it. The completion of that season under strict conditions of COVID. And that's why there are new teams now that are in the PSL that just think winning one game is the thing to go, you know. MEC Lissufi knows what I'm talking about. Because we ensured and we worked with the second division as well, you know, to help promote the guys that are now playing very big. Sorry, MEC Lissufi. So I want to conclude by talking about the way forward. Our team, the provincial government has a team of advisors, the COVID-19 advisors who advise us on COVID-19. I want to talk in the next few minutes to brief our legislature what the outlook is like on COVID-19 going forward in Gauteng. What is the outlook in Gauteng? Various indications first across the country, particularly in the coast, the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape. There are indications of the second surge or the resurgence. At our province, as the indications are in, and that's the team, the advisory committee on COVID says the situation is stable for now, but I'm going to talk about where the big concern and the worry is. And when we know when the first wave happened, the Western Cape and Eastern Cape, what was happening there? There were people who were saying it won't come to Gauteng, it won't happen in other provinces. Even in the Free State in the last month has been going through a very tough time. When in the early phase, they were able to contain COVID. So the issue about COVID-19, don't think if you are successful now and you let off the guard, you will not be in trouble. So the advisors are saying to us that when they monitor the situation on a weekly basis or over 7 days, our numbers are lower, but there are significant concerns that are coming from the advisory council and the provincial coronavirus council in our province. And those concerns have to do with things may be better now, But in the next few weeks, the numbers are increasing, and we can see that from towards the getting into December, including late December and January in particular, we are likely, that's what comes from the advisory council, we are likely to face a very serious problem. When a lot of people are going to be leaving Gauteng now, and a lot of people are going to be coming back in January. They would have traveled, there are issues of, so there are important concerns that the Coronavirus Council has raised, and our COVID-19 advisory committee has raised, which I want to conclude by communicating them to our legislators so that they can communicate them to our communities. People must not think if coronavirus is gone. They mustn't think like that. Because come January, the situation may be we may be back to the peak of June, July, depending on what we do, and everything depends on what we do. So the surge, the numbers may dramatically increase when people return from holidays. And we know in our province, when people return from the different provinces coming back after the lockdown, when they were allowed, what the impact of that also was. So I want to elevate what those risks are. The risk of transmitting COVID virus person to person is going to increase during the festive season. Even now, people are doing parties and they're organizing parties as if in the past 6 months they have never lived, including family gatherings, when the risk is still right here. So during the festive season, the risk is going to increase because also there's interprovincial travel. Bakona amagoduka, who are going to go to the rural areas. Some of the rural areas have high COVID cases. Other rural areas have very, very low cases. There's going to be something of mutual influence in those, either taking COVID to areas where there's none in the rural areas or bringing it back to Gauteng. And this will increase during the interprovincial travel, the chances of greater contact between people and susceptibility and infecting each other, because most of our people use public transport to travel. The public transport system, that's not well ventilated. Also, the family festive gatherings and friends increase the possibility for increasing infections, particularly to older people who are more vulnerable, as their children and grandchildren sometimes would have no symptoms. They would be completely asymptomatic carrying the virus. So these events, there's potential for increasing super spreading events is large as we go into the festive season. And we want to communicate the great concern that we have as the Gauteng provincial government, that people are letting off the guard, and that's not what we should do now. And that is what may drive the resurgence, together with what we have been explaining. If people continue to adhere to the measures, including ensuring that there's more ventilation, people meet, if family meet also in open spaces, and we avoid as families, family gatherings, big family gatherings. Should be another year for family gatherings. We just need to be extremely careful. We are worried about the fact that come January, later December, especially January, Feb, our province may be under tremendous pressure, but it is entirely in our hands. It depends on what we can do. It's not something inevitable. We can influence the trajectory and the epidemiology of the pandemic. So how do we do that? Unless each and every one of us takes steps to prevent the resurgence, and that resurgence may be much bigger and much harsher than the first wave we went through. That is a possibility that you would see in other dispensations. So we call on the people of Gauteng to be more vigilant now more than ever before. We should not be fatigued of wearing masks. We shouldn't be fatigued from social distance. We shouldn't be fatigued about sanitizing. Those are life-saving measures. We need to internalize them, even in families as we live. This is something in our control. This is the way we can slow down the infections. We can slow down the impact of the pandemic. And this is something we can do, because the other is the issue of the vaccine, which is being dealt with at a different level. The race for the vaccine is out there. And that may take a long time. We all listen to the news, but people mustn't say now, oh, the vaccine is there. To get to reach us as a developing country, that vaccine may take a long time. So let's use the instruments in our hands to continue to do what we are able to do to protect others and also protect ourselves. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, 2020 will go down in human history as one of the most trying times since the outbreak of the Spanish flu in 1918-19, and economically since the Great Depression that ran a decade from 1929 to 1939, and possibly together with the Second World War, that the damage of the Great Depression on the economy and life, and the Second World War, even the impact on humanity was huge. Even the countries where there were no bombings participated in the war. COVID-19 is like that. Almost everybody is affected. So the people of our province have done extremely well. They've done a great deal of work collectively in containing the spread of COVID-19 in the period we came from, which was difficult. And we remain resolute in slowing down the spread, the virus, and ensuring that the pandemic, which is still around, which is not gone, does not kill as many people as we have seen, and we save lives through our actions, through improved health services and health infrastructure. I've already warned that in the next few months, in the next month, in the next 2-3 months, things may get worse in Gauteng, but we can do something about it. And in this context, I want to salute all our healthcare workers again. They continue to put their lives on the line to save more lives. And I want to assure them, these healthcare workers, that we will do everything in our power to enhance their resources where it matters most, to deal with the pandemic and offer an effective response. I would also like to assure the residents of Gauteng that we will do everything in our power to hold accountable those involved in COVID-19 corruption and any malfeasance in the provincial administration. We will hold them accountable. We are absolutely committed, Madam Speaker, to grow Gauteng together and build a province of our dreams. And COVID-19 is not going to, it can slow us down, but it is not going to stop us. We remain resolutely unstoppable. And it has slowed us down, but we're going to continue to strive to bring change, development, transformation, industrialization, modernization in this province. Together we shall transform, modernize, and reindustrialize Gauteng. Together we shall achieve clean governance, and we are not going to give up in our fight, determined fight against corruption. The corruption pandemic must be defeated. Together we shall also overcome the COVID-19 pandemic through the interventions that we are called upon to look at. So I would like to conclude by thanking honorable members of the legislature, the MECs, the DG of our province, the heads of departments, the CEOs of agencies, our special advisor, my special advisors, and all the hardworking and ethical government officials in Gauteng. I want to thank only the hardworking and ethical government officials who are loyal in their service to the people of Gauteng. And the rogue ones, we must get them out of the system. And these officials who are ethical, professional, and hardworking have been tested in the most difficult of times during COVID-19. And their loyalty to the people of our province is unwavering. To humanity is unwavering. To saving lives is unwavering. May you all have a safe, peaceful, and restful festive season, but let us observe all the health protocols. Thank you, and may God bless you all.
Thank you, Premier. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Premier. Thank you for the report. The resounding response says it all. We thank the residents of Gauteng for giving us this opportunity for the Premier to address them and give a political report of the province. Colleagues, we've come to the end of, honorable members, we've come to the end of our session, end of our business for the day. I want to wish you well. I'd like to remind colleagues, honorable members, to observe protocol, COVID protocol. Please drive safely, arrive alive, and our next session, till we meet in our next session, which is next year, 21st February 2021. I wish you well and Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to Christians. Happy holidays for others who might not be Christians. I would like to further ask members to not log off this link, or they must not leave this meeting. There is SARS that's waiting to address us. So thank you very much. SARS is going to address us shortly, and those who would like to participate, can they stay on? Thank you very much, Premier and everybody else. We'll meet again. We'll meet on the ground. Those who will not be seeing the sitting, because sittings are finished. Let's meet to do work serving our constituents in Gauteng. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Deputy Speaker, we'll meet on the ground.
Welcome.